Joe here, and it's very early in the morning, which I thought it was 8:30 at night, but that's because of my health. And it's 23 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like cold and stuff. But while the Mustang is warming up here, I thought I would do a little bit of an in-the-car thing. And I think I'm going to bring back part of a series that I used to do back in the day, which was Drive Talk. And what I'll do is I'll tell a few stories every now and then of my days in the dealership. And I guess today would be episode 1, how I actually got into the business. Because I don't think I've ever actually talked about that. I think all the videos I've done have just been about tips and things and ways to run your business. So let's start at the very beginning and talk about how I got into the automotive business. Now, this was a long time ago. A lot of you weren't even born when I started selling cars, which is a very sad fact, but it's true. And in 2000, just after my birthday, I went to a party at the Mall of America, where I used to work, and we proceeded to down, between three of us, about $100 in beer at Hooters, which was like one pitcher. No, I'm just kidding. It was like 4 pitchers between 3 of us, and we went back to my buddy's place. And while completely drunk off my butt, I flipped over a railing. Now, I landed on my foot, but this was also very late in the year in Minnesota after it had snowed, and when I went ass over tea kettle, I broke my foot. And at that time, I was working at a Petco. I was also working at Marshall's at the Mall of America. I wound up quitting the Marshall's job, but I was also the stock manager, the manager of the inventory for the Petco. And I couldn't walk on my foot because I had it casted up. I still have the broken bone. If you can picture your foot, you have a bone back here. Mine is cracked in half. It's the ball of the foot, they call it. It's snapped in half for me. So I wasn't able to continue doing that job. Before I quit that job, though, I went and checked out a turbo Trans Am. IndyCar. It was an 89, I think it was. Correct me down in the comments. I can't remember exactly what year it was. I think it was an 89. It was a GTA Turbo 5-speed, and it was like $3,000, but it was in January of 2001 when I went to look at this thing. The guy wouldn't let me drive it, and I can't really blame him. I pulled in a Dodge Omni, and I had a crutch and a big-ass cast on my leg, and I was asking to drive a sports car in January in Minnesota. So I can't blame him for not wanting to let me drive the car then, but he treated me like crap, and that's what pissed me off. And here's where the story gets interesting, because I also read in the publications at the time, because this was 2001, they didn't have full internet saturation with ads. You had the Auto Trader magazine, which was in Minnesota like 200 pages thick or 150 pages thick every month, actually every week. And these people, this dealership, had about 60% of the available space. They were spending thousands, $10,000 a month just in advertising these cars. Well, I noticed it said hiring. So 2 days later, I go back and I sit down and I talk with the assistant manager, or he was actually the inventory manager, Jim, and he hires me on the spot, which was great. I figured, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come in, I'm going to work for a little bit, I'm going to piss this guy off, and then I'm going to quit because he was a jackass, and I'm going to take up a valuable employee spot, and then I'm going to walk. Turns out I'm good at selling cars, and I was about to say everything. I'm not good at everything. I'm not good at keeping my feet. So anyways, I take this job, and after about a month, in 1 month, I made more money than I did in any 6-month period preceding it. Now, you got to remember, this was 2001. I'm only 22 years old. I'm actually only 21 at this point, so I really haven't had any high-paying jobs. I was a manager at a Funko Land. I was a manager at a restaurant. I ran a movie theater for about 7 months. I worked at a couple of gas stations. So I'd done a lot of stuff. But the main thing is I would get promoted to manager, and then I would quit because there was nothing else for me to do. Manager, store manager at 17. Okay, I quit. So yeah, that's the way I was. I never worked a job more than 6 months. But turns out I liked doing it, and they let me drive other cars and check stuff out and practice driving a stick, because yes, at 21 years old I'd only driven one other stick shift car, and that was my girlfriend's. So yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. But once I got into it, man, I got hooked. I bought my first car that year, other than the Omni, because I bought that from my dad. Thanks, Dad. And I got into it, man. And it turns out that it was really fun. And remember, this is early 2001. By March of 2001, I was selling 15 to 20 cars a month, which was pretty damn good. And, well, I was blowing it all, too, because I had really bad hypermania. I'll do a video on that at some point. So I would go out and spend $2,000 in a weekend and have nothing to show for it. Anyway, early 2001 was before 9/11. And those are what those of us that were in the industry back then, and I was only there for 8 months before it happened, we used to call that the salad days. Because back then, new car dealerships never kept the car out of its factory 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty. In fact, most cars back then had 2-year, 24,000-mile warranties because early 2000 cars were junk. And we were the major used car player in that area. There was a Chevy dealer, a Mazda dealer, a Hyundai dealer, a Buick dealer, a Ford dealer, an Acura dealer, a Hyundai dealer, a Toyota dealer, all big name companies. We were the only independent used car dealership in a 2.5-mile stretch. So it was what we would call the salad days. People would come in and pay us over asking, whatever we asked, pay 23% interest, salad days. So it got me hooked, and that's where I got my start in car business. And then before the end of that year, I became the auction manager and, all that stuff. And then 9/11 happened, and it gets more complicated, but that'll be a story for another day. But that was it for me. Up to that point in my life, and I'd been working since I was 14 or 15 years old, I never found a job that I liked enough to want to go in and do it. And I stayed at that place for almost 11 years, off and on. I took a few months off here and there, but that was the major beginnings of my career. Also the reason I'm going to hell, which I'll explain in another video too. But yeah, that's how I got my start. If you want to hear more stories, I'd be happy to tell them to you. Just let me know down in the comments what you want to hear, and I'd be happy to film it. But the engine's warmed up now, so I'm going to turn on the heater. Because you're up on the dashboard, you'll hear nothing but the fan if I turn it on. And then I'm going to get out of here. I got to go to the post office, and then I got to go get some bandages. So yeah, like this video, comment down below. Use some of my Amazon affiliate links. You can buy the Mustang. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.